She looked at ease, but her earlier words still echoed in his mind. He could feel the tension between them, hanging in the air like a thick cloud, and Zira wasn't exactly subtle about it either. Her silver eyes glimmered with a strange curiosity as she caught his gaze. "Captain Luke," she began, her voice soft and teasing, "I have been thinking about your human methods, specifically how you prolong interactions. Is it true that humans enjoy extended physical contact?" Luke nearly choked on his breath. "Well, yeah, you could say that." Zira leaned slightly closer, her smooth green skin shimmering under the soft lights of the cockpit. "Fascinating. On Ceylon 5, we usually prioritize efficiency. But I find this concept of taking your time stimulating." Luke couldn't help but smirk. "Oh, you'd be surprised how much we like to take our time. We don't just jump straight into things." Zira's lips curved in what was probably the Ceylon 5 equivalent of a playful smile. "I am eager to learn more. Perhaps you could give me a demonstration." Luke felt his pulse quicken. The cold metal walls of the spaceship hummed softly as Captain Luke Carter looked at his unusual companion, Zira, the alien from the distant planet of Ceylon 5. Her emerald green skin glowed faintly in the dim light of the ship's control room, and her large silver eyes were locked on him with an intensity that always made his heart race. Zira was stunning in a way that Luke had never seen before, with her tall, slender frame and her hair that shimmered like the night sky, constantly shifting between shades of blue and purple. But what truly set her apart wasn't just her appearance. It was her biology. Captain Luke, Zira's voice was smooth, almost musical. "I have studied your species thoroughly, and despite our differences, I am certain that we are compatible for bonding." Luke raised an eyebrow, trying to keep his cool. "Compatible, huh? Well, Zira, I don't know how things work on Ceylon 5, but here, bonding usually takes a bit more than just science and data." Zira tilted her head, puzzled. "Are emotions necessary?" "I have noticed that humans rely heavily on emotions. My species does not have such complications." Luke chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Yeah, emotions can complicate things, but they also make things worth it. Love, friendship, excitement, they're what make life interesting." Zira's silver eyes flickered, a sign she was processing this new information. "Fascinating. On Ceylon 5, we connect through a neural link. It is purely logical. There is no uncertainty, no confusion." She paused, glancing at Luke with curiosity. "But you seem confused by me." Luke smirked. "Well, you're not exactly easy to figure out, Zira. But that's not a bad thing." "It's intriguing." Zira stepped closer, her gaze steady. "Then perhaps I should explain more about our compatibility. You see, my species has certain biological abilities that allow us to adapt to other life forms." "Adapt? Like shape-shifting?" Luke asked, half joking. Zira blinked slowly. "In a way, but not as simple as changing appearance. It goes deeper. Our bodies adjust to the physical and chemical needs of other species." Luke blinked. "Wait, so you can just change your biology to match mine?" Zira nodded confidently. "Precisely. I can alter my physiology to align with your human requirements." He knew she wasn't talking about the mission, and the way she said demonstration made it impossible to mistake her meaning. "Zira," Luke replied with a grin, "I think you're getting the hang of these human innuendos. But I gotta say, we don't just rush into lessons like that. You gotta warm up first." Her eyes flickered with curiosity. "Warm up? You mean raising our internal body temperature before contact?" Luke laughed. "Not exactly. I mean, you've got to ease into things, get comfortable, maybe. Start with some lighter touches before you dive into the deep end." Zira tilted her head. "Lighter touches. Are they essential for human bonding?" Luke leaned back, enjoying the back and forth. "Well, they can be. Think of it like an exploration. You start small, learn every detail, and gradually move deeper." Zira's lips twitched, her voice low. "So humans enjoy extended exploration of each other's forms." "Very thorough exploration." Luke shot her a teasing look. "You could say that. We're pretty big on thorough." Zira seemed to be thinking hard about this. "And this thorough exploration, does it require special tools or methods?" "I wish to be well prepared." Luke chuckled. "No tools needed. Just a bit of skill, patience, and maybe a sense of adventure." Zira blinked, her expression serious but her tone playful. "Adventure? I believe I excel at that. Perhaps we could start with a Light exploration after we land. Luke's heart raced, but before he could respond, Al-17's voice cut in again. We've entered Exelon 5's atmosphere. Preparing to land, the ship gave a small jolt as it touched down on the alien surface, and Luke let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. The moment was interrupted, but the tension between them hadn't gone anywhere. If anything, it had only grown. As they stepped off the ship and into the misty, glowing landscape of Zira's home planet, Luke tried to focus on the mission at hand. "All right, Zira, we're here." "What should we expect?" Zira walked beside him, her stride smooth and confident. "Exelon 5 is peaceful, but there have been reports of strange activity in the outer regions. We must investigate thoroughly." She paused, glancing at him with a small, knowing smile. "It is a natural process for us when bonding with another lifeform." Luke wasn't sure whether to be impressed or concerned. "And you're sure that's safe?" "For both of us," Zira smiled, though her smile was more of a curious tilt of her lips than a full human smile. "Of course. Our species has done this many times before with other races across the galaxy. I assure you, Captain Luke, I am more than capable of adapting to your human form." Luke rubbed the back of his neck, unsure of what to say next. This conversation had taken a turn he hadn't expected. He couldn't deny that he was drawn to Zira. But this was all moving fast, maybe too fast. And then there was the whole issue of alien biology. As much as Zira insisted they were compatible, he had his doubts. "Look," Zira, Luke said carefully, "I'm not saying this can't work, but relationships, bonding, whatever you want to call it, they're more than just physical or biological. There's chemistry, connection. That's the important part." Zira's eyes brightened, as if she had just solved a puzzle. "Ah, chemistry. I understand now. You are referring to the emotional and psychological aspects. I believe you enjoy being thorough." Captain Luke shot her a grin. "You could say that. Let's see what we're working with first." They moved through the alien landscape, the ground beneath them glowing softly with each step. The air was thick, filled with strange, fragrant smells that seemed to heighten Luke's senses. Zira led the way, her graceful movements only adding to the surreal beauty of the world around them. "Captain," Zira said after a few minutes, her tone suddenly more serious, "there is something I must tell you about my species' bonding process." Luke raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" More surprises. Zira nodded. "Yes, when we adapt to another species, it is not just a physical process. Our bonding involves synchronization of minds as well. It can be very intimate." Luke blinked. "Wait, you mean like mind reading?" "More than that," Zira explained, her voice soft but filled with meaning. "We share thoughts, feelings, desires. It is a complete merging of consciousness." Luke let out a low whistle. "Wow, that's intense." Zira stepped closer, her eyes locked on his. "I can study this further if you wish. Perhaps there are ways I can adapt my emotional responses as well." Luke laughed. "It's not something you can study, Zira. You can't force it. It just happens." Zira looked slightly frustrated, which was new for her. "Your species is more complex than I anticipated, Captain Luke. But I find it enjoyable. I wish to continue learning. Perhaps there is more I can do to prove our compatibility." Luke raised his hands in mock surrender. All right. I'll give you points for persistence." Just then, a third voice chimed in. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Federation," said Al-17, the ship's AI assistant, its robotic tone breaking the moment. Luke sighed, grateful for the interruption. "Patch it through." As the transmission buzzed to life, Luke's mind wandered back to Zira's words. Compatibility. Adapting. He couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to be with someone who could literally change themselves for him. It was fascinating, sure, but also unnerving. Was Zira truly interested in him, or was this just another experiment for her? The thought lingered in his mind as the transmission came through. "Captain Carter, this is Commander Rain of the Galactic Federation." The voice on the other end boomed. "We've received reports of unusual activity near Exelon 5. We need you to investigate immediately." Luke frowned, exchanging a glance with Zira. "Unusual activity? What kind? We're not sure yet, but it could be a threat to the entire sector. You're the closest ship. We're counting on you." "Understood, Commander. We'll head there right away," Luke replied, his tone serious. Carter out as the transmission ended, Luke turned back to Zira. "Looks like we're heading back to your home planet. Any idea what this unusual activity might be? Zira's expression shifted, her usual calm demeanor cracking just a bit. I am uncertain, but if it involves my people, it could be significant. Luke stood up, feeling the familiar thrill of an upcoming mission. Guess we'll find out soon enough. Let's gear up and get ready. As they prepared for the journey, Luke couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening on Ceylon 5, it was going to be more complicated than he anticipated, and with Zira at his side, things were bound to get interesting. It can be overwhelming for other species, but I believe with your human stamina you could handle it, Luke chuckled, trying to keep things light despite the tension crackling between them. Oh, I've got plenty of stamina, but I've got to warn you, humans don't just dive into the deep end with stuff like that. We like to work our way up. Zira's lips twitched in amusement. I believe you've made that clear, Captain. And I am eager to experience this human method of taking it slow. Luke grinned. Good to hear. But let's focus on the mission for now. We can get to the bonding lessons later. Zira nodded, but her eyes still held that playful, teasing glint. Very well, Captain. But once this mission is complete, I will be ready for the next phase of our exploration. Luke swallowed, already imagining what that might look like. But for now, they had a mission to focus on. Still, he couldn't help but feel like the real adventure was just beginning. The air on Ceylon 5 was thick with mist, a strange, glowing fog that seemed to wrap itself around Luke and Zira as they ventured deeper into the unfamiliar terrain. Luke's mind was supposed to be on the mission, but it kept slipping back to Zira's words. Intimate synchronization. Merging of consciousness, he shot a glance at her, walking confidently beside him, her long, shimmering hair catching the light in a way that was downright distracting. The way she moved was effortless, but there was something about her presence that made it hard for him to focus on anything else. So, Luke said, trying to break the tension that had been building between them, you really think you can handle the human approach? We can be. Complicated, you know. Zira turned her silver eyes toward him, her lips curving into that barely there smile that always left him guessing. Complicated does not intimidate me, Captain. In fact, I find it appealing. Luke chuckled, raising an eyebrow. Appealing, huh? I gotta say, most people like to keep things simple. But if you're up for a challenge, well, humans do like to test the waters. Zira's gaze remained steady, her voice dropping into a lower, teasing tone. Testing the waters? That sounds like an intriguing approach. Are there depths I should be aware of? The ship's engines roared to life, and as they shot through the stars toward Ceylon 5, Luke glanced over at Zira. Her alien biology, her strange customs, her persistence, it all made her feel like a puzzle he wasn't sure he could solve. But one thing was for sure, their journey together was only just beginning. As the ship sped through the vast darkness of space, the hum of the engines was the only sound. Zira and Luke stood side by side in the control room, with an unspoken tension in the air. Luke tried to focus on the mission ahead, but his thoughts kept drifting back to their earlier conversation about compatibility. There was something about the way Zira had said it, so factual, so certain, that kept tugging at his mind. Zira's voice broke the silence. Captain Luke, if I may ask, why does your species place such significance on emotional connections in bonding? Physical compatibility alone seems more efficient. Luke chuckled under his breath. Well, Zira, it's not all about efficiency. Humans like to take their time. We enjoy the process. He shot her a playful glance. It's more fun when you don't rush into things. Luke smirked, feeling the familiar heat creeping up his neck. Oh, we've got depths, all right, and once you dive in, it's a whole new world down there. Zira seemed to consider his words, her lips twitching with amusement. I am eager to explore these depths, Captain. But I must warn you, Cylonian biology allows us to adapt to even the most challenging environments. Luke laughed, shaking his head. You're full of surprises, Zira, but you've got to understand, humans aren't just about quick fixes. We like to take our time, really get to know each other, figure out what makes us tick. Zira stepped closer, her eyes gleaming with that playful curiosity. So it is a process of discovery, uncovering each other's vulnerabilities and strengths. Luke felt his heart race as her words hung in the air. Yeah, something like that. It's all about the connection, building it slowly, layer by layer. Zira's smile grew, just enough to make Luke's pulse jump. I believe I am beginning to understand. Humans value patience, anticipation. Perhaps I should adjust my approach to be more exploratory. Zira tilted her head, genuinely intrigued. Fun? So the process itself is a form of pleasure? Fascinating. On Zelon 5, we prioritize immediate results. Luke raised an eyebrow, smirking. Yeah, but where's the excitement in that? Sometimes the build-up is the best part. It's like when you're exploring uncharted space, you never know what you'll find. You've got to enjoy the journey. Zira's silver eyes glowed brighter, as if she was processing his words on a much deeper level. Interesting. On my planet, we would simply connect and exchange what is necessary. No delays. But if you say that drawing it out brings more satisfaction, then perhaps I should learn this human method. Luke couldn't help but grin. I think you'd like it. It's all about teasing, getting closer, but not too fast. You've got to explore every part. Zira blinked, confused yet eager. Teasing and exploration. You mean like a strategic advance and retreat pattern? Luke laughed, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Something like that. Let's just say it's all about enjoying the ride before you reach the destination. Zira stepped closer, the heat from her alien form making the air around them feel warmer. Luke grinned, trying to keep things light. Exploration's the fun part. You never know what you'll find when you start digging. Zira raised an eyebrow, clearly catching onto his innuendo. And you enjoy this process? Uncovering hidden things. Luke's grin widened. Oh, you'd be amazed at what's hiding just beneath the surface. Sometimes the best things are the ones you have to work for. Zira's silver eyes flickered with interest. I see. So humans prefer a slow build, drawing out the experience to its fullest. Luke swallowed hard. Exactly. Rushing things just means you miss out on the good stuff. Zira leaned in slightly, her voice soft, almost a purr. Then, Captain Luke, I will do my best to embrace this human approach. But you must promise to guide me, teach me how to enjoy this. Prolonged discovery. Luke laughed, feeling the tension crackling between them. Oh, I'll teach you. But like I said, it's a process. You don't want to get too ahead of yourself. Zira tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. Getting ahead, is that something humans find difficult to resist? Then perhaps you could teach me more about this. Ride. Luke cleared his throat, trying to keep his cool. Zira, I'm not sure you're ready for all the lessons just yet. Her lips quirked in what might have been a smile. I assure you, Captain, I am quite capable of adapting quickly. Luke felt his pulse quicken. He loved her straightforward nature, but it made for some very interesting and dangerously tempting conversations. Yeah, but there's something to be said for not adapting too fast. Humans, you know, we like to take our time. Zira looked thoughtful. I see. You enjoy prolonging the experience to heighten the outcome. Intriguing. I must admit, I do find your biological methods stimulating. Perhaps I should begin adapting more slowly, as you suggest, and enjoy this process. Luke coughed, trying to shake off the images forming in his mind. You really don't hold back, do you? Zira's silver eyes gleamed. Why would I? If we are truly compatible, as I believe, there is no reason to delay the inevitable. Luke held up a hand, half laughing, half flustered. Whoa, slow down there. Humans might enjoy the build-up, but we don't just skip straight to the conclusion. Luke's grin was all mischief. Depends on the situation. Sometimes the hardest part is holding back. Zira gave him a slow, considering look, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Then I will make sure to hold back. Until the right moment. Luke's heart raced as they continued walking, the air between them thick with unspoken tension. This was a dangerous game they were playing, and Zira was definitely picking up on every subtle innuendo he threw her way. But before things could escalate further, the landscape around them shifted. They stepped into a clearing, the mist parting to reveal a towering structure in the distance. It shimmered under the alien sun, glowing with a strange, pulsating energy. Zira's expression grew serious as they approached. That is the Nexus Chamber, the core of our planet's energy network. The strange activity we've detected seems to be centered there. Luke nodded, trying to focus on the task at hand. All right, let's check it out. But stay close, something doesn't feel right. Zira gave him a quick, teasing glance. I will stay close, Captain. Very close. Zira stepped even closer, her eyes fixed on his, her voice dropping lower. Then perhaps you should show me exactly how humans like to extend their experiences. Luke felt the air grow thick with tension. Zira, he said, his voice a bit hoarse, you're playing with fire here. She raised an eyebrow. Fire? Is that another metaphor? I am eager to understand all of these human customs. Luke rubbed the back of his neck, trying to think of a way to keep the conversation on track without diving headfirst into dangerous territory. Let's just say when humans get close, things can heat up. It's all part of the excitement. But you've got to pace yourself, or you might burn out too fast. Zira's gaze narrowed slightly, a flicker of challenge in her eyes. I see. So you are implying that the longer the anticipation, the more intense the reward. Luke let out a breath, grinning. Now you're getting it. And trust me, when things finally click, well, let's just say it's worth the wait. Zira's gaze lingered on him, a slow smile playing at the corners of her lips. I look forward to this. Clicking moment, Captain. Just then, Al-17's robotic voice interrupted, causing both of them to jump. Luke swallowed, pushing the thoughts out of his mind. Mission first, Zira. We'll get to the exploration later. Zira nodded, but the playful glint in her eyes never faded. As you wish, Captain. But remember, I am eager to learn all aspects of human interaction, both on and off the battlefield. Luke grinned, shaking his head as they made their way toward the Nexus chamber. The mission might be dangerous, but the real challenge was keeping his head straight around Zira, and with the way things were going, that was easier said than done. The Nexus chamber loomed ahead, its massive structure pulsating with strange energy, casting shadows that seemed to dance in the mist. Luke's focus should have been on the mission, the strange activity they had come to investigate, but his mind kept drifting back to Zira. Every glance, every subtle movement she made seemed to carry more weight, more suggestion. Zira walked beside him, her hips swaying with a grace that seemed almost too perfect. Luke found himself wondering if that was just how her species moved, or if she was doing it on purpose. Captain Luke, we are approaching Axelon 5. Estimated arrival in 10 minutes. Luke sighed in relief, grateful for the distraction. Right, mission time. Let's focus on that for now. But even as the ship hurtled toward Zira's home planet, the heat between them lingered. Luke could feel it, a simmering tension that wasn't going away anytime soon. As they strapped in for landing, Zira leaned closer, her voice soft and teasing. Captain Luke, once this mission is complete, I would like to continue our exploration. Perhaps I can teach you a few things about Xelon 5's methods as well. Luke grinned, feeling the thrill of the challenge. I'm always up for learning something new, but just so you know, we humans tend to take the scenic route. Zira's silver eyes gleamed with amusement. Then, I will be sure to enjoy every moment of it. The ship descended into Axelon 5's atmosphere, its sleek hull cutting through the dense clouds. Luke couldn't help but sneak a glance at Zira as they prepared for landing. There was something about the way she sat, perfectly composed, that made it hard for him to focus on the mission. He caught her looking at him again, those silver eyes studying him like she was still figuring out how to explore his so-called human ways. Captain Luke, Zira said softly, her voice cutting through the silence like velvet. I have been thinking more about your earlier statement. You mentioned that humans enjoy the anticipation, the gradual build-up. Does this apply to all forms of bonding? Luke smirked, knowing exactly what she was hinting at. Well, yeah, we like to. Take things slow. Let the tension build. Makes it all the more satisfying when things finally click. You know, Zira's lips quirked into that playful, almost innocent smile that somehow always managed to have a deeper meaning. Interesting. On Xelon 5, we do not typically engage in prolonged bonding rituals. Our methods are direct, but I find your human customs increasingly intriguing. Luke raised an eyebrow. Direct, her? So no teasing, no build-up, just straight to the point. Zira nodded. Yes, we connect, exchange, and synchronize. It is efficient, but perhaps lacking in excitement. You have mentioned that humans prefer to take their time, to prolong the experience. This teasing, as you call it, seems to be a fundamental part of your interactions. Luke chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Oh yeah, humans like a good tease. It's all about the push and pull, getting close but not too close. You've got to make it last. Zira leaned in, her voice low and sultry. I believe I am beginning to understand. You enjoy the anticipation, drawing it out before the final connection. Luke swallowed, feeling the heat between them rise again. Exactly. But you've got to be careful, Zira. Too much teasing and things can get out of hand. Zira's gaze lingered on him, her eyes filled with a playful challenge. Out of hand, I would very much like to experience this for myself. How far can you push before it becomes? Overwhelming, Luke grinned, trying to keep his cool. You'd be surprised. Humans can handle a lot more than you think. Zira's voice dropped to a whisper, her tone sending a shiver down his spine. Then perhaps you should show me. I am eager to push these boundaries and see how much you can. Endure. Luke felt his pulse quicken. Careful, Zira, you're playing with fire. But even with the mission at hand, Luke couldn't shake the feeling that their conversation was far from over. As they worked to investigate the strange energy source, Zira continued her line of questioning. Captain, you mentioned earlier that humans enjoy physical contact as part of their bonding process. What types of contact are most effective in building this connection? Luke bit his lip, trying not to get too distracted. Depends on the situation. Sometimes a light touch is all it takes. Other times it's more about closeness, being in each other's space without crossing the line. Zira took a step closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. And what happens when the line is crossed? Luke's heart raced. Well, once you cross that line, things can get pretty intense. Zira's gaze lingered on him, her expression both curious and teasing. I would like to understand this intensity. Perhaps after the mission you can demonstrate. Luke laughed softly, trying to focus on the task at hand. We'll see about that, but before they could continue their playful exchange, the ground beneath them trembled. The energy in the room spiked, and the crystals lining the walls began to glow brighter, their pulsating rhythm speeding up. Zira's expression shifted to one of concern. The nexus is destabilizing. We must act quickly. Luke nodded, snapping back to reality. Right. Let's fix this before things really heat up. They moved swiftly, working together to stabilize the energy core. But even as they focused on the mission, the tension between them never faded. If anything, it only grew stronger. As the last of the energy readings returned to normal, Zira glanced at Luke, her voice soft and full of promise. Now that the mission is complete, Captain, perhaps we can continue our previous discussion. I am eager to explore this human concept of anticipation and release. Luke swallowed, feeling the heat between them rise again. Zira, I think you're more than ready for the next lesson. But like I said, humans like to take their time. Zira smiled, her eyes gleaming with amusement. Then I will be patient, Captain. But know this, I am very determined. And I will not stop until I fully understand every aspect of human compatibility. Luke grinned, knowing that this was far from over. The mission might have been completed, but the real adventure was just beginning. The Nexus chamber was quiet now, its previously chaotic energy calming after their mission. But between Luke and Zira, the intensity was anything but quiet. The playful banter, the not-so-subtle tension, it had all been building to this moment. Zira stood close to Luke, her silver eyes sparkling with curiosity and something a lot deeper. Captain, she began, her voice a low hum. I have learned much about your human customs, but there is still so much left to explore. Physically, emotionally, and otherwise. Luke smirked, his heart racing as Zira leaned in closer, her gaze never leaving his. Well, Zira, there's a lot more where that came from. Humans have a way of keeping things interesting. Zira tilted her head, the same teasing smile playing on her lips. Interesting indeed. You said earlier that humans like to take their time, savor the experience. But now that our mission is complete, perhaps it is time for you to stop holding back. Don't you think? Captain Luke's breath hitched. He'd known this moment was coming, but Zira's directness was something else. You've got a point, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady, but you sure you're ready for what that means? Because humans don't just stop at the surface. Zira's lips twitched into a full-blown smirk. I have adapted to many new experiences since meeting you. I am certain I can handle whatever you offer. Luke grinned, unable to resist her challenge. Well, don't say I didn't warn you with that. The playful edge between them shifted into something more real, more intense. Luke reached out, brushing a hand down her arm, feeling the soft warmth of her alien skin. Zira didn't flinch. If anything, she stepped closer, her gaze locked onto his like she was waiting for him to make the next move. Humans, Luke said softly, his voice filled with a teasing edge, like to explore every part of compatibility. It's not just about diving in, it's about seeing where things lead. Zira raised an eyebrow, her silver eyes gleaming with both curiosity and something deeper. And where do you propose we begin this exploration? Luke's grin widened as his hand trailed lower, his fingers brushing against her waist. Wherever it feels right. Sometimes it's about touching. Sometimes it's about teasing. You'd be surprised how much humans like to take their time getting to know each other. Zira's breath caught slightly at his touch, but her voice remained steady. I see. You mean to say that humans engage in extended preparation? Luke chuckled softly. Exactly. And the key is to enjoy every step of the way. Zira's hand, delicate but confident, reached for his, guiding it further up her side. Her skin was warm, and he could feel the hum of her alien energy beneath it. And what happens when the preparation is complete? She asked, her tone dangerously soft. That's when things get really interesting, Luke replied, feeling the heat between them spike. Zira's smile deepened, and in one smooth motion she pressed herself closer to him, their bodies almost touching. Then perhaps it is time to test your human endurance, Captain, she whispered, her voice sending a shiver through him. I have been patient, but now I wish to experience everything. Luke felt his pulse quicken, and the tension between them skyrocketed. I think you're about to find out just how intense things can get. The air between them crackled as Zira's hand slid up his chest, her touch feather-light but deliberate. You humans are truly fascinating. Always prolonging the inevitable, she teased, her voice dripping with dual meaning. But there is something exhilarating about the way you build. Tension. Luke swallowed hard, his mind racing. He could feel the heat rising, not just between them, but within him. Yeah, we like to make sure everything is just right before we get to the good part. Zira's lips curved into a sultry smile. Then perhaps it is time to skip to the good part. Before he could respond, Zira leaned in and pressed her lips against his, her kiss full of promise and heat. It wasn't just an alien curiosity anymore, there was real desire in her movements, a hunger to understand this strange human connection in every possible way. Luke pulled her closer, deepening the kiss as the sparks between them ignited into a full-blown fire. His hands roamed her body, feeling the soft curves and the gentle hum of her alien biology beneath his touch. Every part of her was different from any human woman he'd ever known, but in that moment, it didn't matter. As they pulled apart, breathless and flushed, Zira's eyes were alight with a new understanding. Now I see why humans place so much importance on taking their time. It certainly builds anticipation. Luke grinned, his heart still racing. Told you it was worth it. Zira's smile softened, but there was still that playful edge in her eyes. Then perhaps we should continue this exploration. After all, I have much to learn about human compatibility. Luke chuckled, his hand brushing a strand of her shimmering hair away from her face. Oh, Zira, we've barely scratched the surface. And as the two of them stood there, wrapped in each other's warmth, Luke knew this was the beginning of something wild. Something that crossed boundaries, blurred lines, and pushed the limits of what they both thought was possible. Zira leaned in, her voice a soft whisper against his ear. I believe I am ready for the next lesson, Captain. I wish to fully understand